The boxer staggers backward, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. The crowd roars. His opponent circles, sensing victory. For a moment, time seems to freeze. Then something shifts in the boxer's eyes. A fire reignites. He steadies himself, raises his guard, and steps forward with renewed determination. This is not just physical strength. This is mental resilience. Mental resilience is the invisible armor that separates those who crumble under pressure from those who rise stronger from every fall. It is not something you are born with, but something you build, brick by brick, through deliberate practice and unwavering commitment. In a world that constantly tests our limits, throws unexpected challenges our way, and demands more than we think we can give, mental resilience becomes our greatest asset. Think about the most successful people you know. What do they have in common? It is not that they never face obstacles or experience failure. Instead, it is their ability to bounce back from setbacks, to view challenges as opportunities, and to maintain their focus and determination even when circumstances seem impossible. This quality, this mental toughness, is what we call resilience. Mental resilience affects every aspect of your life. In your professional world, it determines whether you see a project failure as the end of your career or as valuable feedback for improvement. In your personal relationships, it influences whether a disagreement destroys your connection or strengthens your bond. In your health journey, it decides whether one setback derails your entire progress or becomes a minor detour on your path to wellness. The good news is that resilience is not a fixed trait. You are not destined to be fragile or tough based on your genetics or early experiences. Research in neuroscience and psychology has shown us that the brain is remarkably plastic, capable of forming new neural pathways and adapting to new patterns of thinking and behavior throughout your entire life. This means you can train yourself to become more resilient, just as you would train your body to become stronger at the gym. Throughout this book, you will discover the foundations of mental resilience, learn practical strategies to build your psychological strength, and understand how to maintain your resilience over the long term. You will explore the science behind why some people seem naturally tough while others struggle, and more importantly, you will learn how to develop that toughness yourself regardless of where you are starting from. But before we dive into the strategies and techniques, it is crucial to understand what mental resilience truly means. It is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending difficulties do not affect you. It is not about becoming cold or detached. True resilience involves acknowledging your struggles, feeling your emotions fully, and then choosing to move forward anyway. It is about flexibility, not rigidity. It is about bending without breaking. Mental resilience also does not mean you never experience stress, anxiety, or sadness. These emotions are part of the human experience and they serve important functions. Resilient people feel these emotions just as intensely as anyone else. The difference lies in how they process these feelings and how quickly they can recover their equilibrium. They have developed a toolkit of strategies that help them navigate emotional storms without being swept away. Consider the concept of post-traumatic growth. While we often hear about post-traumatic stress disorder, research has shown that many people who experience significant trauma actually emerge from it with increased psychological strength, deeper relationships, greater appreciation for life, and a stronger sense of personal capability. This is resilience in action. It is the ability to not just survive difficult experiences but to use them as catalysts for growth and transformation. Your journey to building mental resilience begins with a simple but profound recognition. You have more control over your mental state than you might think. While you cannot control every external circumstance, you can control how you interpret events, how you respond to challenges, and what meaning you assign to your experiences. This internal locus of control is one of the hallmarks of resilient individuals. Throughout history, we have seen countless examples of ordinary people demonstrating extraordinary resilience. From entrepreneurs who failed multiple times before achieving success, to athletes who overcame career-ending injuries, to individuals who rebuilt their lives after devastating personal losses. These stories are not just inspirational tales. They are proof that human beings possess an incredible capacity to adapt, overcome, and thrive in the face of adversity. As we embark on this journey together, I invite you to approach this material with an open mind and a commitment to practice. Reading about resilience is valuable, but building resilience requires action. It requires you to step outside your comfort zone, to challenge your habitual thought patterns, and to consistently apply new strategies even when they feel awkward or difficult at first. The path to mental resilience is not always linear. You will have days when you feel invincible and days when you question your progress. This is completely normal. Resilience itself is about learning to navigate these ups and downs with grace and determination. It is about developing the confidence that no matter what life throws at you, you have the inner resources to handle it. Before we move forward, take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with challenges. How do you typically respond when things do not go as planned? Do you tend to catastrophize, or do you look for solutions? Do you withdraw, or do you reach out for support? There are no right or wrong answers here. This is simply about developing self-awareness, which is the foundation upon which all personal growth is built. In the chapters ahead, we will explore the core components of mental resilience, including emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, self-compassion, purpose and meaning, social support, and physical vitality. Each of these elements plays a crucial role in your overall resilience, and together they create a comprehensive framework for psychological strength. You will learn practical exercises and techniques that you can implement immediately. From mindfulness practices that help you stay grounded in the present moment, to cognitive reframing techniques that help you challenge unhelpful thought patterns, to physical practices that build your stress tolerance. This book is designed to be both informative and actionable, providing you with knowledge and tools you can use right away. Remember, building mental resilience is not about reaching a destination where you are permanently immune to stress or hardship. It is about developing a set of skills and attitudes that help you navigate life's inevitable challenges with greater ease and effectiveness. It is about becoming someone who can face uncertainty without being paralyzed by fear, who can experience setbacks without losing hope, and who can maintain their sense of purpose even in difficult times. The investment you make in developing your mental resilience will pay dividends in every area of your life. You will find yourself better equipped to handle workplace stress, to maintain healthy relationships, to pursue ambitious goals, and to simply enjoy life more fully. You will develop a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes your way. So let us begin this journey together. Let us explore what it truly means to be mentally resilient and how you can cultivate this invaluable quality in your own life. The path ahead may challenge you, but that is precisely the point. Growth happens at the edges of our comfort zone, and building resilience requires us to venture into unfamiliar territory with courage and commitment. Chapter 1. Understanding the foundation of mental resilience. Imagine your mind as a muscle. Just like your biceps or quadriceps, your mental strength can be trained, developed, and enhanced through consistent practice. But unlike physical muscles, which we can see growing in the mirror, mental resilience operates beneath the surface, in the intricate networks of your brain and the patterns of your thoughts. The foundation of mental resilience rests on several key pillars. First and foremost is your belief system, particularly your beliefs about challenges and your own capabilities. Psychologist Carol Dweck's groundbreaking research on mindset revealed that people fall into two categories: those with a fixed mindset who believe abilities are static, and those with a growth mindset who believe abilities can be developed. Those with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. When they fail, they do not interpret it as evidence of their inadequacy but as valuable feedback about what needs improvement. This fundamental difference in perspective creates dramatically different outcomes when facing adversity. A person with a growth mindset approaches difficulties with curiosity rather than fear, with determination rather than defeat. Your brain is constantly making predictions about the world based on past experiences. This is an evolutionary adaptation that helped our ancestors survive in dangerous environments. If you encountered a predator once, your brain learned to recognize similar threats and react quickly. This same mechanism operates in modern life, but sometimes it works against us. If you experienced failure or rejection in the past, Your brain might overgeneralize and predict failure in new situations, even when circumstances are completely different. This is where neuroplasticity comes into play. Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Every time you think a thought, your brain reinforces certain neural pathways. Think of it like walking through a forest. The first time you walk a particular route, you have to push through undergrowth and branches. But if you walk that same path repeatedly, it becomes clearer and easier to traverse. Your thoughts work the same way. The exciting implication is that you can literally rewire your brain for resilience. By consistently practicing resilient thinking patterns, you strengthen those neural pathways until they become your default response to challenges. This does not happen overnight, but with persistence, you can transform your automatic reactions to stress and adversity. Another crucial foundation of mental resilience is emotional awareness and regulation. Many people mistakenly believe that resilient individuals do not experience strong emotions or that they somehow suppress their feelings. This could not be further from the truth. Resilient people actually tend to have a high degree of emotional intelligence. They recognize and acknowledge their emotions without being controlled by them. Think of emotions as messengers bringing you important information. Anxiety might be telling you to prepare more thoroughly for an upcoming presentation. Anger might be signaling that a boundary has been crossed. Sadness might be inviting you to grieve a loss fully before moving forward. When you develop the ability to listen to these emotional messages without being overwhelmed by them, you gain valuable self-knowledge and can respond more effectively to situations. Emotional regulation does not mean suppression. It means developing the capacity to experience your emotions fully while maintaining your ability to think clearly and act in alignment with your values. This is a sophisticated skill that requires practice. It involves creating space between the stimulus that triggers an emotion and your response to that emotion. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, famously wrote about this space in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He observed that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This profound insight captures the essence of emotional resilience. You cannot always control what happens to you or how you initially feel about it, but you can control how you ultimately respond. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of this emotional regulation. You need to be able to recognize what you are feeling as you are feeling it. This sounds simple, but many people go through their days on autopilot, reacting to situations without truly understanding their emotional state. They might snap at a colleague without recognizing they are actually anxious about an upcoming deadline. They might withdraw from a partner without realizing they are feeling vulnerable and afraid of rejection. Developing self-awareness requires you to pause regularly and check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? What triggered this feeling? What is this emotion trying to tell me? These simple questions, asked consistently, can dramatically increase your emotional intelligence and your ability to respond to challenges effectively. Another foundational element of mental resilience is your relationship with failure and setbacks. In our achievement-oriented culture, failure is often seen as shameful, something to be avoided at all costs. But this perspective actually undermines resilience. If you believe failure is catastrophic, you will naturally avoid taking risks or pursuing ambitious goals. You will stay within your comfort zone where success is guaranteed but growth is limited. Resilient individuals have reframed their relationship with failure. They see it as an inevitable part of any worthwhile pursuit. Every successful entrepreneur has failed businesses. Every acclaimed author has rejected manuscripts. Every Olympic athlete has lost competitions. The difference is not that successful people never fail, but that they view failure as data rather than destiny. When Thomas Edison was asked about his many failed attempts to create the light bulb, he reportedly said he had not failed but rather found 10,000 ways that did not work. This reframing is not just positive thinking or putting a happy spin on disappointment. It is a fundamentally different way of relating to the learning process. Each failure provides information about what does not work, bringing you closer to discovering what does. This shift in perspective requires you to separate your self-worth from your outcomes. Your value as a person is not determined by your successes or failures. You are worthy simply because you exist. When you internalize this truth, you free yourself to take risks, to experiment, to fail and try again without it threatening your fundamental sense of self. The concept of self-compassion, pioneered by researcher Kristin Neff, is crucial here. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a good friend who is struggling. When you fail or make a mistake, instead of harsh self-criticism, you acknowledge your imperfection as part of the shared human experience and respond with gentleness and support. Research has shown that self-compassion is strongly associated with resilience. People who practice self-compassion recover more quickly from setbacks, experience less anxiety and depression, and maintain higher levels of motivation and well-being. This makes intuitive sense. If you know you will treat yourself kindly regardless of the outcome, you are more willing to take healthy risks and stretch beyond your current capabilities. Your belief about control also significantly impacts your resilience. Psychologists distinguish between an internal locus of control, where you believe you have significant influence over outcomes, and an external locus of control, where you believe outcomes are primarily determined by external forces like luck or other people. Resilient individuals tend to have a strong internal locus of control. This does not mean believing you control everything that happens to you. That would be both unrealistic and anxiety-producing. Rather, it means believing you have significant agency in how you respond to circumstances and in shaping your future. You recognize that while you cannot control the weather, you can control whether you bring an umbrella. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how much access they have to your inner peace. This sense of agency is empowering. It moves you from a victim mentality where you are at the mercy of circumstances to a creator mentality where you actively shape your experience of life. Even in situations where your external options are limited, you maintain control over your attitude, your interpretation of events, and your commitment to your values. Purpose and meaning form another critical foundation of resilience. When you have a clear sense of purpose, when you know what you are working toward and why it matters, you can endure tremendous hardship. Viktor Frankl observed this in concentration camps during World War II. Those who had a reason to survive, whether it was to reunite with loved ones or to complete important work, were more likely to survive than those who lost their sense of purpose. Your purpose does not have to be grandiose or world-changing. It can be as simple as being a loving parent, creating beauty through art, helping your community, or mastering your craft. What matters is that it is meaningful to you and that it gives your struggles context. When you are pursuing something you deeply care about, obstacles become challenges to overcome rather than reasons to quit. This sense of purpose also helps you maintain perspective during difficult times. When you zoom out and look at your challenges in the context of your larger life journey and the values you are committed to, they often seem more manageable. A difficult project at work is not just a source of stress, but an opportunity to demonstrate your competence and move toward your career goals. A relationship conflict is not just painful, but a chance to deepen intimacy through honest communication. Social connection is another foundational element we will explore in depth later, but it is worth noting here that humans are fundamentally social creatures. Our brains are wired for connection, and our well-being is deeply influenced by the quality of our relationships. Resilient individuals tend to have strong social support networks they can turn to during difficult times. This does not mean you need a huge number of friends or followers. Quality matters far more than quantity. Having even one person who truly sees you, accepts you, and supports you can make an enormous difference in your ability to weather storms. These connections remind you that you are not alone, provide different perspectives on your challenges, and offer practical and emotional support when needed. Finally, physical health forms a crucial foundation for mental resilience. Your mind and body are not separate entities but deeply interconnected systems. When you are sleep-deprived, poorly nourished, or physically sedentary, your mental resilience suffers. Your ability to regulate emotions, think clearly, and maintain motivation all decline when your body is not well cared for. This does not mean you need to be a perfect specimen of physical fitness. It simply means recognizing that basic self-care like adequate sleep, nutritious food, regular movement, and stress management are not luxuries but necessities for maintaining your psychological well-being. When you take care of your physical foundation, you create the conditions for mental resilience to flourish. Understanding these foundations gives you a roadmap for building resilience. It is not a mysterious quality that some people possess and others lack. It is a set of beliefs, skills, and practices that anyone can develop with commitment and effort. Like building physical strength, building mental resilience requires consistent practice over time. There will be setbacks and plateaus, but if you persist, you will develop a robust psychological foundation that serves you throughout your life. As you reflect on these foundations, consider which areas are already strong for you and which need more attention. Are you practicing self-compassion or self-criticism? Do you have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Do you feel a sense of purpose? Are you taking care of your physical health? This honest self-assessment is not about judging yourself, but about identifying where to focus your development efforts. In the next chapter, we will explore specific strategies for developing emotional regulation, one of the most critical skills for mental resilience. You will learn practical techniques to manage stress, process difficult emotions, and maintain your equilibrium even in chaotic circumstances. Chapter 2. Mastering emotional regulation. The executive sits in her car in the parking garage, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. She just left a meeting where her proposal was torn apart by the leadership team. Her heart races. Her mind spirals through worst-case scenarios. She feels the familiar tightness in her chest that signals rising panic. But then she pauses. She takes a deliberate breath. She recognizes what is happening. And in that moment of recognition, everything begins to shift. Emotional regulation is not about controlling your emotions in the sense of suppressing or eliminating them. It is about developing a conscious relationship with your emotional experience. It is about being able to feel what you feel without being swept away by it. This skill is absolutely central to mental resilience because life will inevitably present situations that trigger strong emotions. Your ability to navigate these emotional storms determines whether you are derailed by them or able to continue moving toward your goals. The first step in emotional regulation is recognition. You cannot regulate an emotion you are not aware of experiencing. This sounds obvious, but many people have learned to disconnect from their emotions, particularly uncomfortable ones. They might be anxious but label it as being tired. They might be sad but convince themselves they are just busy. This disconnection might provide short-term relief, but it prevents you from addressing the real issue. Developing emotional awareness requires you to tune into your body because emotions always have a physical component. Anxiety might manifest as tension in your shoulders, a racing heart, or shallow breathing. Anger might show up as heat in your face, clenched fists, or a tight jaw. Sadness might feel like heaviness in your chest or a lump in your throat. By paying attention to these physical sensations, you can catch emotions early before they become overwhelming. A practice called the body scan can help develop this awareness. Several times throughout your day, pause and systematically check in with different parts of your body. Start with your feet and move up through your legs, torso, arms, and head. Notice any areas of tension, discomfort, or sensation without trying to change them. This simple practice builds the mind-body connection that allows you to recognize emotions as they arise. Once you have recognized an emotion, the next step is acceptance. This might seem counterintuitive. If you are feeling anxious or angry, why would you accept it rather than trying to make it go away? The paradox is that acceptance is actually the pathway to change. When you resist an emotion, you create a secondary layer of suffering. You are not just anxious, you are anxious about being anxious. You are not just sad, you are ashamed of being sad. Acceptance means acknowledging what is present without judgment. It is okay that I am feeling anxious right now. This is a natural response to a challenging situation. It makes sense that I am feeling angry. My boundaries were violated. When you validate your emotional experience in this way, you remove the additional burden of self-criticism. You create space to work with the emotion rather than against it. This does not mean you are resigning yourself to feeling this way forever. Acceptance is about the present moment. Right now, this is what I am feeling. That is a factual statement, not a value judgment or a life sentence. From this place of acceptance, you can then choose how to respond. Naming your emotions is a powerful tool for regulation. Research in neuroscience has shown that putting feelings into words, a process called affect labeling, actually reduces the intensity of emotional experience. When you can accurately identify and name what you are feeling, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, which helps calm the amygdala, the emotional center. But be specific in your naming. Do not just say, "I feel bad." Are you disappointed, frustrated, overwhelmed, discouraged, or something else? Each of these emotions has a different quality and suggests different responses. Disappointment might call for grieving and then refocusing on a new goal. Frustration might signal that you need to change your approach. Overwhelm might indicate you need to break tasks into smaller pieces or ask for help. Building a rich emotional vocabulary allows you to understand your inner experience with greater nuance and precision. Instead of just angry, you might recognize you are feeling resentful, irritated, indignant, or livid. Each of these represents a different intensity and flavor of anger. This precision helps you respond more effectively to what you are actually experiencing. One of the most powerful techniques for emotional regulation is creating space between the emotion and your response to it. This is where mindfulness practice becomes invaluable. Mindfulness is the practice of paying attention to the present moment with openness and curiosity, without judgment. It helps you observe your thoughts and feelings as mental events rather than absolute truths. When an emotion arises, instead of immediately reacting to it or identifying with it, you can observe it with a slight sense of distance. I notice I am having the thought that I am going to fail. I am aware of feeling anxious. This subtle shift in language creates psychological space. You are not your thoughts or emotions. You are the awareness that observes them. This does not mean detaching from your experience or becoming cold and clinical. It means developing the capacity to witness your inner life without being completely consumed by it. You can feel deep sadness while also maintaining some part of yourself that is not lost in the sadness, that can still function and make choices. Breathing techniques are among the most accessible and effective tools for emotional regulation. Your breath is a bridge between your conscious and unconscious nervous systems. By deliberately changing your breathing pattern, you can influence your physiological state and, consequently, your emotional state. When you are stressed or anxious, your breathing typically becomes shallow and rapid, centered in your chest. This activates your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response. By consciously slowing your breath and breathing deeply into your belly, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response. This physiological shift naturally calms your emotional state. A simple technique is 4-7-8 breathing. Breathe in through your nose for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, and exhale through your mouth for a count of 8. Repeat this cycle several times. The extended exhale is particularly important because it signals safety to your nervous system. You only breathe out slowly when you are not under threat. Another powerful approach is box breathing, also called square breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, and hold empty for 4 counts. Then repeat. This creates a rhythmic pattern that helps regulate your nervous system and gives your mind something to focus on other than anxious thoughts. The key with any breathing technique is to practice it regularly when you are calm, not just in moments of acute stress. This builds the neural pathways so the technique becomes accessible when you need it most. Just like you cannot learn to swim while drowning, you cannot learn emotional regulation techniques for the first time in the middle of a crisis. Cognitive reframing is another essential skill for emotional regulation. The situations you encounter in life do not have inherent meaning. You assign meaning based on your interpretation, and your interpretation depends on your beliefs, past experiences, and what you focus on. By changing your interpretation, you can change your emotional response. This is not about positive thinking or denying reality. It is about recognizing that your initial interpretation might not be the only valid one or the most helpful one. When your proposal is rejected, you might initially think this means I am incompetent and will never succeed. This thought generates feelings of shame and despair. But you could also think this proposal was not quite right, but I can learn from the feedback and improve the next one. This thought generates feelings of determination and curiosity. Both interpretations involve the same external event, but they create completely different emotional experiences and behavioral outcomes. The first interpretation might lead you to give up. The second motivates you to persist and improve. Resilient people have learned to catch unhelpful interpretations and consciously choose more empowering ones. A helpful framework for cognitive reframing is to ask yourself, what else could this mean? Is there another way to look at this situation? What would I tell a friend who was going through this? Often you are much more compassionate and balanced in your thinking about others than about yourself. Asking what you would tell a friend can help you access that balanced perspective for your own situation. Another powerful question is, how might this challenge be serving me? What am I learning from this? How might I grow through this experience? These questions shift you from a victim mindset to a growth mindset. They help you find meaning and opportunity even in difficult circumstances. It is important to note that reframing is not about invalidating your genuine pain or difficulty. If something is truly terrible, you do not need to pretend it is wonderful. But even in genuinely difficult situations, there is often some element you can influence, something you can learn, or some way you can respond that honors your values and moves you forward. Expressive writing is a research-backed technique for processing difficult emotions. Psychologist James Pennebaker conducted extensive research showing that writing about emotional experiences for just 15 to 20 minutes a day for 3 to 4 days can significantly improve both psychological and physical health. The process is simple. Set a timer and write continuously about your deepest thoughts and feelings regarding a challenging situation. Do not worry about grammar, spelling, or making sense. This is just for you. Let whatever comes up flow onto the page. The goal is not to create a polished piece of writing, but to process your emotions and gain insights. This practice works for several reasons. It helps you organize and make sense of chaotic emotional experiences. It allows you to express feelings you might be holding back in other contexts. It creates distance from the emotion, allowing you to see it more objectively. And it often leads to unexpected insights and aha moments about the situation and yourself. Physical activity is another powerful tool for emotional regulation. Exercise is not just good for your body, it is essential for your mental health. When you exercise, your body releases endorphins, natural mood elevators. You also metabolize stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that build up during stressful experiences. You do not need to run a marathon or spend hours at the gym. Even a brisk 20-minute walk can significantly shift your emotional state. The key is to find forms of movement you genuinely enjoy so you will actually do them consistently. This might be dancing, hiking, swimming, yoga, martial arts, or anything else that gets your body moving. Pay attention to how different types of exercise affect your emotional state. Some people find that intense cardiovascular exercise helps them burn off anxious energy. Others find that gentle, mindful movement like yoga or Tai Chi helps them feel centered and calm. Experiment and discover what works best for you. Social support is crucial for emotional regulation, though it needs to be the right kind of support. Simply venting to someone who validates your victimhood can actually reinforce unhelpful patterns. What you want is someone who can hold space for your emotions without trying to fix them or make them go away, while also helping you gain perspective and access your own resilience. Learning to ask for the kind of support you need is an important skill. You might say, I need to vent for a few minutes, and then I would love help problem solving, or I just need someone to listen right now without giving advice. Being clear about what would be helpful allows others to support you effectively. It is also important to recognize when professional support might be beneficial. If you find yourself consistently overwhelmed by emotions, unable to function in daily life, or engaging in harmful coping behaviors, working with a therapist can provide valuable tools and support. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness but of wisdom and self-care. Self-soothing techniques can help you calm yourself in moments of acute distress. These are simple activities that engage your senses and bring you into the present moment. You might wrap yourself in a soft blanket, smell a calming essential oil, listen to soothing music, look at beautiful images, or taste a piece of dark chocolate mindfully. The key is to engage these senses consciously, paying full attention to the sensory experience. This grounds you in the present moment and interrupts the spiral of anxious or painful thoughts. Over time, you can build a personal toolkit of go-to self-soothing activities that reliably help you feel more regulated. Creating emotional boundaries is another aspect of regulation that is often overlooked. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions, and you can choose how much you allow their emotional states to affect you. This does not mean being cold or uncaring. It means recognizing where you end and others begin. If someone is angry at you, you can acknowledge their anger without absorbing it as your own. If someone is trying to make you feel guilty, you can recognize their attempt without accepting the guilt. This requires practice and often feels uncomfortable at first, especially if you have been conditioned to take responsibility for others' feelings. But it is essential for maintaining your own emotional well-being. Finally, developing a regular emotional check-in practice can prevent small issues from becoming major crises. Set aside time each day, perhaps before bed or during your morning routine, to simply notice how you are feeling. What emotions have been present today? What triggered them? How did I handle them? What do I need right now? This daily practice builds self-awareness and allows you to address emerging issues before they become overwhelming. You might notice you have been feeling increasingly irritable and realize you need more sleep or alone time. You might notice persistent low mood and decide to reach out to a friend or schedule some enjoyable activities. Emotional regulation is a lifelong practice, not a destination you arrive at. There will always be new challenges that test your capacity. But with each challenge you navigate consciously, you strengthen your emotional regulation muscles. You build confidence in your ability to handle whatever emotions arise. And you develop the psychological flexibility that is at the heart of resilience. As you practice these techniques, be patient with yourself. You have probably been operating with certain emotional patterns for years or decades. Changing these patterns takes time and consistent effort. Celebrate small wins. Notice when you catch yourself before reacting automatically. Acknowledge when you choose a helpful interpretation over a catastrophic one. These small moments of conscious choice are building your resilience day by day. In the next chapter, we will explore how to develop cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt your thinking to changing circumstances and to generate creative solutions to problems. This mental agility complements emotional regulation and further strengthens your overall resilience. Chapter 3. Developing cognitive flexibility. The chess grandmaster stares at the board. Her carefully planned strategy has just been appended by an unexpected move from her opponent. For a moment, frustration flickers across her face. Then her expression shifts. She leans back, a slight smile playing at her lips. Within seconds, she begins to see the board differently. New possibilities emerge. What seemed like a disaster now looks like an opportunity. This is cognitive flexibility in action. Cognitive flexibility is your brain's ability to adapt your thinking to new, changing, or unexpected situations. It is the mental agility that allows you to switch between different concepts, to see things from multiple perspectives, and to generate creative solutions when your initial approach is not working. In a world that is constantly changing and presenting novel challenges, cognitive flexibility is essential for resilience. Think about the last time you faced an unexpected obstacle. Did you get stuck on your original plan, frustrated that it was not working out? Or were you able to quickly shift gears and consider alternative approaches? Your answer reveals your current level of cognitive flexibility. The good news is that, like all mental abilities, cognitive flexibility can be developed through deliberate practice. Rigid thinking is the opposite of cognitive flexibility. When you think rigidly, you become attached to one way of seeing or doing things. If circumstances change or your approach is not working, you persist anyway, hoping that reality will bend to your expectations. This leads to frustration, inefficiency, and ultimately failure when situations demand adaptation. You can see rigid thinking in statements like "this is the only way, I've always done it this way," or "that will never work." These absolute statements close off possibilities and lock you into a fixed perspective. They might provide a temporary sense of certainty in an uncertain world, but they ultimately limit your ability to respond effectively to changing circumstances. Flexible thinking, by contrast, embraces uncertainty and possibility. It asks what if instead of making declarations. It says, "Let me try this approach and see what happens," rather than "this must work." It views perspectives as tools to be picked up and put down as needed, rather than as fixed truths to defend. One of the foundations of cognitive flexibility is recognizing that your thoughts are not facts. Your brain is constantly generating interpretations, predictions, and judgments. These mental products can be useful, but they are not objective reality. They are one possible way of understanding a situation, filtered through your unique experiences, beliefs, and current emotional state. When you realize you are having a thought rather than encountering an absolute truth, you create mental space. Instead of "I am going to fail," you recognize "I am having the thought that I am going to fail." This subtle shift allows you to examine the thought rather than simply believing it. Is there evidence for this thought? Is there evidence against it? Is this thought helping me or hindering me? This process, central to cognitive behavioral therapy, is called cognitive diffusion. You are separating yourself from your thoughts, recognizing them as mental events rather than reality. A useful metaphor is to imagine your thoughts as clouds passing through the sky. You can observe them, notice their shape and movement, but you do not have to hold on to them or let them block your view of the sky itself. Developing cognitive flexibility also requires challenging your assumptions. We all carry countless assumptions about how things work, what is possible, what people are like, and how we should behave. Most of these assumptions operate beneath conscious awareness, shaping our perceptions and choices without our realizing it. To surface these assumptions, pay attention to your automatic reactions. When you feel immediately certain about something, pause and ask yourself, "What am I assuming here? What would have to be true for this to make sense?" Often you will discover hidden assumptions that, upon examination, might not actually be valid. For example, you might assume that asking for help is a sign of weakness. This assumption might lead you to struggle unnecessarily rather than accessing available resources. But when you examine it consciously, you might realize that asking for help is actually a sign of wisdom and self-awareness. It shows you know your limits and are willing to leverage the strengths of others. Challenging this one assumption can open up entirely new possibilities for how you approach challenges. Perspective taking is a powerful practice for building cognitive flexibility. This involves consciously trying to see a situation from different viewpoints. If you are in conflict with someone, instead of just defending your perspective, genuinely try to understand theirs. What are they seeing that you might be missing? What concerns or needs are driving their position? You can also practice taking different time perspectives on your challenges. If you are worried about an upcoming presentation, imagine looking back on it a year from now. Will it seem as significant? What advice would your future self give to your current self? Or imagine how a mentor you admire would view the situation. What would they focus on? How would they respond? These mental experiments help you break free from your habitual perspective and access new insights. They remind you that your current view, while valid, is not the only valid view. There are always multiple ways to interpret any situation, and some interpretations are more empowering than others. Another aspect of cognitive flexibility is being willing to change your mind when presented with new information. This sounds obvious, but in practice, people often resist information that contradicts their existing beliefs. This is called confirmation bias. You tend to notice and remember information that supports what you already believe while dismissing or forgetting information that challenges it. Intellectual humility is the antidote to confirmation bias. This is the recognition that your current understanding is always incomplete and potentially flawed. You hold your opinions with appropriate confidence, but also with openness to revision. When you encounter evidence that contradicts your view, instead of defending your position, you get curious. What can I learn from this? How might I need to update my thinking? This does not mean being wishy-washy or changing your mind at every new piece of information. It means being committed to truth and effectiveness rather than to being right. If your goal is to understand reality accurately and respond to it effectively, you need to be willing to update your mental models when they are not matching reality. Brainstorming is a classic technique for developing cognitive flexibility. When facing a problem, instead of going with your first idea, generate as many possible solutions as you can without evaluating them. Quantity over quality at this stage. The goal is to stretch your thinking beyond the obvious answers. During brainstorming, suspend your inner critic. Do not dismiss ideas as too crazy or impractical. Some of the most innovative solutions come from combining unusual ideas or taking an outlandish suggestion and making it more practical. The creativity researcher Edward de Bono talked about lateral thinking, which involves approaching problems from unexpected angles rather than following traditional logical progressions. One useful brainstorming technique is to ask how might we questions. Instead of how do I fix this problem, ask how might we prevent this problem from occurring? Or how might we turn this problem into an opportunity? Or how might someone in a completely different field approach this? These reframes can generate fresh perspectives. Playing with metaphors can also enhance cognitive flexibility. When stuck on a problem, try comparing it to something completely different. If my challenge were a journey, what kind of journey would it be? If it were a game, what game would it be and what are the rules? If it were a machine, what part might be malfunctioning? These metaphorical comparisons can reveal aspects of the situation you had not considered. Cognitive flexibility also involves being comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty. Life rarely presents clear-cut situations with obvious right answers. More often, you are dealing with complex scenarios with multiple variables, incomplete information, and competing priorities. Rigid thinkers struggle in these situations because they are searching for the one correct answer. Flexible thinkers recognize that there might be several reasonable approaches, each with different trade-offs. Developing tolerance for ambiguity starts with noticing your discomfort with uncertainty. When you are faced with a situation where you do not know the right answer, what happens? Do you feel anxious? Do you rush to make a decision just to resolve the uncertainty? Or can you sit with the not knowing for a while, gathering information and letting your understanding develop? This tolerance for ambiguity allows you to make better decisions because you do not force premature closure. You can hold multiple possibilities in mind simultaneously, weighing them thoughtfully rather than grabbing the first option that reduces your discomfort. This is especially important in complex situations where the first obvious solution might not be the best one. Mental contrasting is a technique that combines optimism with realism, requiring cognitive flexibility. Developed by psychologist Gabrielle Ettingen, it involves first vividly imagining achieving your goal and experiencing the benefits, then identifying the obstacles that might prevent you from reaching it. This dual perspective helps you maintain motivation while also preparing realistically for challenges. The process goes like this. First, clearly define your goal and imagine in detail what achieving it would be like. How would you feel? What would change? Really let yourself experience the positive emotions. Then shift perspective and identify the main obstacle standing between you and this goal. This might be an external circumstance or an internal barrier like a habit or fear. This combination of positive visualization and realistic assessment creates what Ettingen calls energized action. You are motivated by the desirable future, but you are also preparing to handle the obstacles. Research shows this approach is more effective than either pure positive thinking or purely focusing on problems. Learning from different domains can significantly enhance cognitive flexibility. When you study how people in various fields approach problems, you expand your mental toolkit. A software engineer might learn valuable lessons from how a chef approaches recipe development. A teacher might gain insights from how a coach motivates athletes. A business leader might benefit from understanding how an artist nurtures creativity. This cross-pollination of ideas prevents you from being stuck in the paradigms of your own field. It exposes you to different frameworks, methodologies, and ways of thinking. Make it a practice to regularly read about or talk to people from fields completely different from your own. Notice the mental models they use and consider how you might adapt them to your challenges. Cognitive flexibility is also enhanced by regularly doing new things. When you engage in novel activities, your brain has to create new neural pathways. This keeps your mind nimble and adaptable. The activity does not have to be dramatic. It could be taking a different route to work, trying a new cuisine, learning a few phrases in a foreign language, or attempting a craft you have never tried before. These small novelties build your comfort with unfamiliarity. They remind you that you are capable of learning and adapting. Over time, this translates into greater ease when facing larger unexpected changes. Your brain basically learns that new and different is not necessarily threatening, but can be interesting and enriching. Another powerful practice is devil's advocate thinking. Once you have formed an opinion or decided on a course of action, deliberately argue against it. What are the potential downsides? What assumptions might be flawed? What alternative might be better? This is not about undermining your confidence, but about stress testing your thinking to ensure it is robust. Organizations sometimes use a designated devil's advocate in decision-making processes to ensure they are not missing important considerations due to groupthink. You can perform this function for yourself in your personal decision-making. Before committing to a major decision, spend some time genuinely trying to make the case against it. This might confirm your original choice, or it might reveal blind spots that lead you to modify your approach. Reframing failures and setbacks is a crucial application of cognitive flexibility. When something does not go as planned, you have choices about how to interpret it. You could see it as evidence of your inadequacy, which undermines confidence and motivation. Or you could see it as valuable feedback about what needs adjustment, which maintains motivation and leads to improvement. This is not about denying real disappointment or pretending everything is fine. It is about finding the learning within the failure. What worked? What did not work? What would I do differently next time? These questions shift you from rumination to reflection, from stuck to strategic. The practice of scenario planning builds cognitive flexibility by having you imagine multiple possible futures. Instead of assuming one particular outcome, you envision several different scenarios and consider how you would respond to each. This mental rehearsal makes you more adaptable when the actual future unfolds in unexpected ways. For any important goal or decision, identify 3 to 5 plausible scenarios ranging from best case to worst case. For each scenario, think through the early warning signs that would indicate it is unfolding and what your response would be. This preparation does not guarantee you will not be surprised, but it significantly increases your ability to adapt quickly when circumstances change. Mind mapping is a visual technique that can help you think more flexibly about complex topics. Instead of linear notes or lists, you create a diagram with your central topic in the middle and related ideas branching out in all directions. This mirrors more closely how your brain actually makes connections and can reveal relationships you might miss with linear thinking. When facing a complex challenge, try mind mapping it. Put the challenge in the center and branch out with all the factors involved, potential solutions, resources available, possible outcomes, and anything else relevant. Do not worry about organizing it logically at first. Just get all the elements out where you can see them. Often this process reveals unexpected connections or solutions. Cognitive flexibility requires energy and mental resources. When you are exhausted, stressed, or depleted, you naturally fall back on habitual patterns of thinking. This is why self-care is not just about feeling good, but is essential for maintaining cognitive capacity. Adequate sleep, good nutrition, regular exercise, and stress management all support your ability to think flexibly. Notice when your thinking becomes rigid.
Often it is a sign that you need rest or nourishment.
Instead of pushing through with increasingly narrow and inflexible thinking, take a break. Go for a walk, eat something nutritious, take a nap if possible. When you return to the challenge, you will likely find you can see it more clearly and creatively. As you develop cognitive flexibility, you will notice yourself becoming less reactive and more responsive. When faced with change or challenge, instead of immediately resisting or panicking, you pause and consider options. You ask better questions. You see possibilities where before you saw only problems. This mental agility becomes one of your greatest assets in navigating life's inevitable uncertainties and complexities. In the next chapter, we will explore the crucial role of self-compassion in building resilience. You will learn why being kind to yourself, especially during difficult times, is not self-indulgent but essential for sustainable success and well-being. Chapter 4. Cultivating self-compassion. The athlete crosses the finish line in 8th place. Her Olympic dream has just crumbled. The camera captures her face, not twisted in self-hatred as might be expected, but showing a complex mixture of disappointment and something else. Something that looks almost like tenderness. Later, in an interview, she will say, "I gave everything I had today. I am proud of that, even though the outcome was not what I hoped for." This is self-compassion in one of its most challenging moments. Self-compassion is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal development. Many people confuse it with self-indulgence, self-pity, or lowering standards. In reality, self-compassion is about treating yourself with the same kindness, concern, and understanding you would offer a good friend facing similar circumstances. It is a profound source of resilience because it allows you to acknowledge pain and failure without being destroyed by them. Researcher Kristen Neff, who has pioneered the scientific study of self-compassion, identifies 3 core components: self-kindness versus self-judgment, common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification. Understanding each of these elements can transform how you relate to yourself during difficult times. Self-kindness means being warm and understanding toward yourself when you suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring your pain or beating yourself up with self-criticism. This might sound obvious, but most people have an incredibly harsh internal critic. Notice how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Would you speak to a friend that way? If not, why is it acceptable to speak to yourself that way? This internal critic often develops early in life as a misguided attempt to motivate yourself or protect yourself from criticism by others.
The logic goes, if I criticize myself first and harshly enough, I will be motivated to improve and others' criticisms will not hurt as much.
But research consistently shows this approach backfires. Self-criticism is associated with increased anxiety, depression, and fear of failure. It actually undermines the motivation and well-being it is supposed to create. Self-kindness is not about making excuses or avoiding responsibility. You can acknowledge that you made a mistake or fell short while still treating yourself with care and understanding. I messed up, and I feel bad about it. This is hard. What do I need right now? This response acknowledges reality while maintaining self-respect and care. The second component, common humanity, involves recognizing that suffering and imperfection are part of the shared human experience. When you fail or struggle, instead of feeling isolated and alone as if something is uniquely wrong with you, you recognize that this is what it means to be human. Everyone fails. Everyone struggles. Everyone feels inadequate sometimes. This perspective is profoundly healing because so much of our suffering comes from the belief that we are alone in our pain or that our struggles mean there is something fundamentally flawed about us. When you remember that imperfection is universal, you feel connected rather than isolated. Your struggles become evidence of your humanity rather than your inadequacy. Think about social media and how it creates a distorted view of common humanity. People typically share highlights and successes while hiding struggles and failures. This creates the illusion that everyone else has it together while you alone are struggling. Recognizing this distortion and actively remembering that everyone has hidden challenges can help you maintain perspective. The third component is mindfulness, which in this context means holding your painful thoughts and feelings in balanced awareness rather than over-identifying with them or suppressing them. This is the middle path between drowning in difficult emotions and pretending they do not exist. When something painful happens, mindfulness allows you to acknowledge it without exaggerating its significance or letting it define you entirely. Yes, I failed at this task and I feel disappointed. This is different from I am a complete failure and I always mess everything up, which is over-identification. It is also different from whatever, it does not matter, which is avoidance. This balanced awareness requires you to stay present with discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. It is the emotional regulation skill we discussed earlier, applied with compassion. You notice what you are feeling and thinking without harsh judgment, holding the experience with gentle attention. Practicing self-compassion does not come naturally to most people, especially those raised in cultures that emphasize harsh self-criticism as a motivator. It requires deliberate practice and patience with yourself as you develop this new habit. One of the most effective practices is the self-compassion break, which you can use in any moment of difficulty. The self-compassion break involves 3 steps. First, acknowledge the moment of suffering. This is really hard right now, or I am struggling. Second, remind yourself of common humanity. This is part of being human, or I am not alone in feeling this way. Third, offer yourself kindness. May I be kind to myself, or what do I need right now? These simple phrases, used consistently, can profoundly shift your relationship with yourself. Another powerful practice is self-compassionate journaling. When you are struggling with something, write yourself a letter from the perspective of an unconditionally loving and wise friend. What would this friend say to you? How would they acknowledge your pain while also offering encouragement and perspective? Actually, writing this out can help you access compassion for yourself that feels difficult to generate directly. You might also try the practice of supportive touch. Just as you might pat a friend on the back or give them a hug when they are struggling, you can offer yourself physical gestures of kindness. This might be placing your hand on your heart, giving yourself a hug, or gently stroking your own arm. This might feel awkward at first, but physical gestures actually activate the mammalian caregiving system, releasing oxytocin and reducing cortisol. One common concern about self-compassion is that it will lead to complacency or lack of motivation. If I am kind to myself when I fail, why would I bother trying to improve? This concern makes intuitive sense but is contradicted by research. Studies consistently show that self-compassion is associated with greater motivation, not less. The reason is that self-compassion provides a secure base from which to take risks and grow. When you know you will treat yourself kindly regardless of the outcome, you are more willing to try challenging things. You are more willing to acknowledge and learn from mistakes because you are not terrified of your own harsh self-judgment. Self-compassion creates the psychological safety necessary for genuine growth. In contrast, self-criticism tends to activate the threat defense system. Your brain perceives your own harsh internal voice as a threat, triggering fight, flight, or freeze responses. This might create short-term compliance driven by fear, but it undermines intrinsic motivation and well-being. Over time, chronic self-criticism leads to avoidance, giving up, or perfectionistic paralysis. Self-compassion is particularly important when dealing with self-imposed pressure and perfectionism. Perfectionists often believe their harsh self-criticism is what drives their high standards and achievements. But research shows that self-compassionate perfectionists, those who have high standards but treat themselves kindly when they fall short, are actually more successful and significantly happier than self-critical perfectionists. This makes sense when you think about it. Fear of failure can motivate you to some degree, but it also creates anxiety that interferes with performance. It makes you less likely to take necessary risks or try new approaches. In contrast, when you pursue excellence from a place of self-compassion, you are motivated by genuine aspiration and love of the craft rather than fear and self-judgment. Practicing self-compassion also impacts how you relate to others. When you are harsh with yourself, you tend to be harsh with others, whether you realize it or not. Your inner critic does not stay inner. It leaks out in your judgments and reactions to people around you. Conversely, as you develop greater compassion for your own imperfections, you naturally develop greater compassion for others' imperfections. This does not mean lowering your standards for yourself or others. You can still expect a lot and strive for excellence, but you do so from a foundation of basic human respect and kindness rather than conditional acceptance based on performance. This creates healthier, more sustainable relationships both with yourself and with others. Self-forgiveness is a crucial application of self-compassion. Everyone makes mistakes, some minor and some significant. Carrying shame and self-condemnation for past actions keeps you stuck and undermines your well-being. Self-forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful behavior or avoiding responsibility. It means acknowledging what you did, understanding the context and your limitations at the time, making amends where possible, learning from the experience, and then releasing the burden of shame. The process of self-forgiveness often involves several steps. First, clearly acknowledge what you did without minimizing or making excuses. Second, explore the context and factors that influenced your behavior without using them to avoid responsibility. Third, feel and express genuine remorse. Fourth, make amends to anyone you harmed if appropriate and possible. Fifth, identify what you learned and how you have changed or will change. Finally, consciously choose to forgive yourself and release the shame. This process might take time, especially for significant transgressions. You might need to revisit these steps multiple times. But holding on to shame indefinitely serves no useful purpose. It does not undo the past or protect anyone. It simply depletes your energy and well-being, making you less capable of positive contribution in the present and future. Self-compassion is also essential when dealing with body image and health challenges. Many people have incredibly judgmental and harsh relationships with their bodies, especially when dealing with illness, disability, aging, or not meeting cultural beauty standards. This harsh judgment adds psychological suffering on top of any physical challenges. Practicing self-compassion with your body means treating it with kindness and respect regardless of how it looks or what it can or cannot do. It means appreciating your body for all it does for you rather than condemning it for not meeting external standards. It means caring for your body out of love rather than punishment or shame. This compassionate relationship with your body actually supports healthier behaviors. Research shows that body shame is associated with less physical activity, more disordered eating, and poorer health outcomes. In contrast, body appreciation and self-compassion are associated with more sustainable healthy behaviors motivated by care rather than self-hatred. When you are going through particularly difficult circumstances like illness, loss, or major life upheaval, self-compassion becomes even more crucial. These are the times when your inner critic might go into overdrive, suggesting you should be handling things better or that there is something wrong with you for struggling. This is precisely when you most need to remember common humanity and self-kindness. You might tell yourself, "This is incredibly difficult, and it makes complete sense that I am struggling. Anyone in this situation would find it hard. What I need right now is compassion, not criticism. What would feel supportive?" This internal dialogue creates space for both the difficulty and your fundamental worthiness of care. Cultural considerations are important in self-compassion practice. Some cultures emphasize self-effacement and might view self-compassion as selfish or self-centered. If this is your cultural context, it can be helpful to reframe self-compassion not as self-focus but as building your capacity to serve others. When you care for yourself compassionately, you have more to offer others. You model healthy self-relationship for those around you. It is also worth noting that self-compassion is not the same as self-esteem. Self-esteem is often contingent on success, comparison with others, and meeting certain standards. It fluctuates based on circumstances. Self-compassion, in contrast, is stable. It does not depend on being special or better than others. It is rooted in basic human worth and kindness that is available in all circumstances. As you develop self-compassion, you might notice resistance. This resistance often comes from fear that self-kindness will make you weak, lazy, or self-indulgent? These fears are worth acknowledging and examining. Where do they come from? Are they based on evidence or assumption? What would happen if you experimented with being kinder to yourself? Often the resistance to self-compassion reflects core beliefs about worthiness and deservingness. I do not deserve kindness. I need to earn love through achievement. If I am not hard on myself, I will fail. These beliefs, while understandable given many people's life experiences, are not actually true. You deserve kindness simply because you are human. Your worth is inherent, not earned. Challenging these core beliefs takes time and often benefits from professional support through therapy. But even small steps toward self-compassion can create positive ripple effects. Each time you choose self-kindness over self-criticism, you are rewiring your brain and strengthening new neural pathways. As you practice self-compassion, be patient with yourself. It might feel awkward or even fake at first, especially if self-criticism has been your default for years. This is normal. Keep practicing anyway. Over time, self-compassion will start to feel more natural and genuine. You will internalize a compassionate inner voice that supports you through challenges rather than tearing you down. The goal is not to eliminate all self-critical thoughts. That is probably unrealistic and maybe not even desirable, as some self-evaluation helps you learn and grow. The goal is to change your relationship with these thoughts. When the inner critic shows up, you can acknowledge it without believing everything it says or letting it dictate your self-worth. You can thank it for trying to protect you and then choose to respond with compassion instead. Self-compassion is not a weakness or a luxury. It is a fundamental strength and a necessity for sustainable well-being and achievement. It provides the secure foundation from which you can take risks, learn from failures, and persist through challenges. It allows you to be fully human, with all the messiness and imperfection that entails, while still maintaining your dignity and worth. In the next chapter, we will explore how to find and maintain a sense of purpose and meaning, which provides the why that makes resilience through difficult times worthwhile. You will learn how connecting to something larger than yourself can be a powerful source of strength and motivation when facing adversity. Understand. Chapter 5. Finding purpose and meaning. Viktor Frankl stood in a concentration camp, surrounded by unimaginable suffering. He had lost his family, his freedom, his manuscript, everything material. Yet he observed something remarkable. Those who had a reason to survive, a why that transcended their current circumstances, were more likely to endure. This observation became the foundation of his logotherapy and his assertion that those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Purpose and meaning are not luxuries reserved for those whose basic needs are met. They are fundamental human needs as essential as food and shelter. When you have a clear sense of purpose, when you know what you are working toward and why it matters, you can endure tremendous hardship. When you lack purpose, even minor inconveniences can feel unbearable. Your purpose does not have to be grandiose or world-changing. It does not have to involve curing cancer or achieving fame. Your purpose might be raising your children with love and wisdom. It might be creating beauty through art or craft. It might be serving your community, mastering your profession, or supporting friends through their struggles. What matters is that it feels meaningful to you and gives your life direction. The search for meaning is deeply personal. What feels meaningful to one person might feel empty to another, and that is perfectly okay. There is no hierarchy of purpose. The artist's purpose is not more or less important than the teacher's or the parents' or the entrepreneur's. Each person must discover what calls to them, what makes their heart come alive, what contribution they feel drawn to make. Many people struggle with finding their purpose, especially in modern society where traditional sources of meaning like religion, community, and clear social roles have weakened for many. The vast array of options can feel paralyzing. How do you choose what to dedicate your life to when possibilities seem endless? One approach is to look backward rather than forward. Reflect on moments in your life when you felt most alive, most engaged, most yourself. What were you doing?
Who were you with? What values were you expressing? These peak experiences often point toward your core values and sources of meaning.
Another approach is to consider what problems in the world break your heart.
What injustices, sufferings, or unmet needs do you find yourself unable to ignore?
Often your purpose lies at the intersection of what breaks your heart and what skills or gifts you have to offer. Your sensitivity to a particular problem might be a calling to address it in whatever way you can. Purpose often emerges from your values. Values are the principles and qualities that matter most to you, like honesty, creativity, courage, connection, growth, or justice. When you clarify your values and actively align your life with them, you create meaning.
Each choice to honor your values becomes significant, even if the action itself seems small. For example, if one of your core values is learning, then every book you read, every skill you develop, every question you explore becomes meaningful.
You are not just passing time. You are living in alignment with what matters to you.
This transforms ordinary activities into purposeful ones. Viktor Frankl identified 3 primary sources of meaning: creating a work or doing a deed, experiencing something or encountering someone, and the attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering.
The first 2 are fairly straightforward. You create meaning through your contributions and through your relationships and experiences.
The third is more subtle but equally important.
When you face circumstances you cannot change, when you encounter suffering that is unavoidable, you still have the freedom to choose your attitude toward it. This is where meaning can be found even in the darkest circumstances. How will you respond to this challenge? What qualities will you cultivate? What will you learn? How will this shape who you become? This does not romanticize suffering or suggest you should seek it out. It simply acknowledges that life will include difficulties you did not choose. When these difficulties arrive, you can still find meaning in how you respond to them. The cancer patient who chooses to face treatment with courage and grace. The person who loses a loved one and channels their grief into supporting others who are grieving. The professional who faces a career setback and uses it to clarify what really matters to them. Purpose provides resilience by giving you a reason to persist when things get hard. When you are exhausted and want to quit, remembering why you are doing this can reignite your motivation. When you face obstacles, your purpose helps you see them as challenges to overcome rather than reasons to give up. Your purpose becomes your North Star, keeping you oriented even when the path is unclear. But purpose alone is not enough. You also need to translate your purpose into concrete goals and daily actions. Otherwise, purpose remains abstract and disconnected from your actual life. This is where goal setting becomes crucial. Your goals should flow from your purpose, serving as stepping stones toward living a meaningful life. For example, if your purpose is to help people heal from trauma, your goals might include getting relevant education, volunteering with a crisis center, eventually becoming a licensed therapist, and creating accessible resources for trauma survivors. Each goal connects to and serves your larger purpose. It is important to distinguish between intrinsic and extrinsic sources of meaning. Intrinsic meaning comes from the inherent satisfaction of the activity or pursuit itself. You do it because it feels meaningful and aligned with your values, not because of external rewards. Extrinsic meaning comes from external validation, status, money, or other external outcomes. Both can be motivating, but intrinsic meaning provides more stable and enduring motivation. External circumstances change. You might achieve the status or recognition you were seeking and find it empty, or you might not achieve it and feel like a failure. Intrinsic meaning is more under your control and less dependent on circumstances or others' opinions. This is not to say external rewards do not matter or that you should not pursue them. Rather, it is about recognizing that the deepest satisfaction and resilience comes from finding intrinsic meaning in your pursuits. When you love the process itself, when you find the work meaningful regardless of recognition, you can sustain effort over long periods and weather inevitable setbacks. Connection to something larger than yourself is a powerful source of meaning. This might be a religious or spiritual tradition. It might be dedication to a cause like environmental protection or social justice.
It might be identification with your family lineage or cultural heritage. It might be the recognition that you are part of the vast web of life on Earth. This connection provides perspective. Your individual struggles, while real and significant, are part of a much larger tapestry. You are contributing to something that extends beyond your individual life. This can be comforting during difficult times. Your suffering has context. Your efforts matter even if you do not see all the results. Legacy thinking is related to this sense of connection. How do you want to be remembered? What impact do you want your life to have? These questions help clarify what really matters to you. When facing a difficult decision, asking how this choice aligns with a legacy I want to leave can provide clarity. It is worth noting that your purpose can evolve over time. What felt deeply meaningful in your 20s might feel less compelling in your 40s. New experiences, relationships, and insights can shift your sense of purpose. This is not failure or inconsistency. It is growth. As you change, your purpose naturally evolves. The key is to stay connected to the process of meaning-making throughout your life. Regularly check in with yourself. Does my current life align with what matters to me? Am I spending time on things that feel meaningful? If not, what needs to change? These questions keep you oriented toward purpose rather than drifting through life on autopilot. Sometimes people struggle with purpose because they are waiting for a dramatic revelation or calling. They imagine purpose will arrive like a lightning bolt, suddenly and unmistakably. For some people, it does happen this way. But for many, purpose emerges gradually through exploration, experimentation, and attention to what brings energy and meaning. Give yourself permission to explore. Try different activities, engage with different communities, expose yourself to different ideas and perspectives. Notice what resonates. What do you find yourself thinking about when your mind wanders? What issues do you keep coming back to? What activities make you lose track of time? These are clues to your purpose. Purpose can also be found in your everyday roles and relationships. Being a good friend, a loving partner, a dedicated parent, these can be profoundly meaningful purposes. You do not need a formal title or public recognition for your purpose to be valid and significant. The quiet, consistent work of showing up for the people you care about, of contributing in your immediate sphere of influence, this is purpose incarnate. Meaning can be found in craftsmanship, in doing any work with excellence and integrity. The carpenter who takes pride in creating sturdy, beautiful furniture. The nurse who brings genuine care to each patient interaction. The teacher who stays late to help a struggling student. Excellence in any domain, when practiced with intention and care, creates meaning. Purpose also provides resilience by helping you make difficult choices. When faced with competing demands or tempting distractions, your purpose serves as a decision-making filter. Does this opportunity align with my purpose? Will it move me toward what matters most? If not, it might be easy to decline even if it seems appealing on the surface. This does not mean rigidly rejecting anything that does not directly serve your purpose. Life includes rest, play, exploration, and experiences that might not fit neatly into your purpose but are still valuable. The point is that having a clear purpose helps you make more intentional choices about where to invest your limited time and energy. Finding purpose also often involves facing your mortality. This might sound morbid, but contemplating the fact that your time is limited can clarify what truly matters. If you knew you only had a year to live, how would you spend it? What would suddenly seem obviously important? What would you realize you have been wasting time on? You do not need to wait for a terminal diagnosis to benefit from this perspective. You can cultivate what some traditions call memento mori, remembering death. This is not about becoming morbid or fearful, but about letting the reality of mortality focus your attention on what truly matters while you are still here. Purpose provides a framework for understanding setbacks and failures. When you encounter obstacles on your purposeful path, they do not invalidate the path itself. They are simply challenges to navigate. This perspective helps you persist through difficulty rather than interpreting every setback as a sign you are on the wrong track. Viktor Frankl wrote about the importance of tension between what one is and what one should become. This creative tension, between your current reality and your valued direction, provides motivation and vitality. If you have no sense of purpose, no gap between where you are and where you want to be, life can feel stagnant. Purpose creates healthy striving. This is different from the anxiety of never being good enough or the relentless pressure of perfectionism. The tension Frankl describes is energizing rather than depleting. It is the pull of possibility, the invitation to grow, rather than the push of inadequacy. You are drawn forward by what matters to you rather than driven by fear or shame. As you reflect on purpose and meaning in your life, remember that this is an ongoing exploration rather than a problem to solve once and for all. Your task is not to figure out the one true purpose and then execute it perfectly. Your task is to stay connected to what matters, to let your sense of meaning guide your choices, and to keep refining your understanding as you grow and change. In the next chapter, we will explore the role of social connection and support in building resilience. You will learn how healthy relationships provide strength during difficult times and how to cultivate the kind of connections that enhance rather than undermine your well-being. While purpose gives you direction, relationships provide support and companionship on the journey. Conclusion. Your resilience journey begins now. You have traveled far in these pages. From understanding the foundations of mental resilience to mastering emotional regulation, developing cognitive flexibility, cultivating self-compassion, and finding purpose and meaning. You have explored the science, the strategies, and the stories that illuminate the path to becoming more mentally resilient. But a book can only take you so far. The real work, the transformative work, happens when you close these pages and step into your life with new awareness and commitment. Mental resilience is not built by reading about it, but by practicing it day after day, choice after choice, in the small moments and the significant challenges. Remember the boxer who staggers but does not fall, who reignites his determination and steps forward again. Remember the chess grandmaster who adapts when her plan crumbles and finds new possibilities. Remember the athlete who treats herself with compassion even in disappointment. These are not extraordinary people with superhuman abilities. They are people who have practiced resilience until it became their natural response. You have that same capacity. The neural pathways in your brain are ready to be shaped by your repeated thoughts and actions. Every time you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you strengthen those compassionate pathways. Every time you reframe a setback as a learning opportunity, you build cognitive flexibility. Every time you regulate your emotions consciously rather than reacting automatically, you enhance your emotional intelligence. Start small. You do not need to transform everything at once. Choose one practice from this book that resonates with you. Maybe it is the self-compassion break. Maybe it is daily breathing exercises. Maybe it is keeping a resilience journal. Whatever it is, commit to practicing it consistently for 30 days. Notice what changes. Notice how you respond differently to challenges. Notice the moments when you catch yourself before falling into old patterns. Celebrate these victories, no matter how small they seem. Each one is evidence of your growing resilience. As you build your resilience, remember that setbacks are inevitable. There will be days when you respond to stress exactly as you always have, when you forget everything you have learned, when you wonder if you are actually making any progress. This is normal. This is part of the process. Resilience is not about perfection, but about returning to practice again and again. Be patient with yourself. Brain change takes time. You are rewiring patterns that have been in place for years or decades. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, look back and notice how you have changed. The transformation might be so gradual you do not notice it day to day, but over time, the cumulative effect is profound. Surround yourself with support. Share what you are learning with trusted friends or family. Consider joining a group or working with a coach or therapist who can support your growth. You do not have to do this alone. In fact, trying to build resilience in isolation makes it much harder. We are social creatures who thrive with connection and support. Keep learning and growing. This book provides a foundation, but there is always more to discover about resilience, psychology, neuroscience, and human potential. Follow your curiosity. Read widely. Listen to people who have faced adversity and emerged stronger. Let their stories inspire and instruct you. Most importantly, use your growing resilience in service of what matters to you. Resilience is not an end in itself, but a means to living a life aligned with your values and purpose. The whole point of becoming more mentally tough is so you can pursue meaningful goals, maintain loving relationships, contribute to your community, and navigate life's inevitable challenges without being destroyed by them. As you face difficulties, and you will face difficulties, remember that you are building something. Each challenge you navigate consciously is making you stronger. You are not just surviving, you are developing psychological muscle that will serve you for the rest of your life. There will be times when you doubt yourself, when resilience feels impossible, when you want to give up. In those moments, remember why you started this journey. Remember what matters to you. Remember that you have survived 100% of your worst days so far. You have more strength than you know. Mental resilience is perhaps the most valuable skill you can develop in an uncertain and challenging world. It allows you to bounce back from anything, to turn obstacles into opportunities, to maintain hope and determination even when circumstances are difficult. It allows you to be fully human, experiencing all of life's emotions, while not being defined or limited by them. The art of mental resilience is not about becoming invulnerable or untouchable. It is about becoming flexible, adaptable, compassionate, and purposeful. It is about developing the inner resources to handle whatever life presents with grace and strength. It is about knowing that no matter what happens, you will be okay because you have yourself. This journey never truly ends. There will always be new challenges that test your resilience in new ways. There will always be opportunities to grow, to deepen your practice, to expand your capacity. Embrace this ongoing nature of the journey. See it not as a problem but as the dynamic, ever-evolving nature of being alive. You are not trying to arrive at some final destination where you are permanently resilient and never struggle again. You are cultivating a way of being that allows you to navigate struggle with greater skill, compassion, and wisdom. You are developing a relationship with yourself and with life that honors both your strength and your vulnerability. As we close, take a moment to acknowledge how far you have already come. You invested time in reading this book. You engaged with challenging concepts. You reflected on your own patterns and possibilities. These actions alone demonstrate resilience and commitment to growth. Now take that commitment forward. Make resilience practice a part of your daily life. Let it inform your choices, your responses to challenges, your relationship with yourself and others. Let it guide you toward a life of greater well-being, authenticity, and contribution. The world needs your resilience. Your family needs you to be steady and strong. Your community needs your contribution. Your own dreams and goals need your determined persistence. By building your mental resilience, you are not just helping yourself. You are becoming a source of strength and inspiration for others. Remember always, you can bounce back from anything. You have the capacity for profound resilience. It is your birthright as a human being. Now it is time to claim it, develop it, and use it to create a life that honors who you truly are and what you most deeply value. Your resilience journey begins now. Step forward with courage, compassion, and commitment. The challenges ahead are real, but so is your capacity to meet them. You are stronger than you know. You are more resilient than you think. And you are absolutely capable of bouncing back from anything life brings your way. Go forth and be resilient. The world is waiting for all you have to offer.